So we're starting today with about oils and fat and metabolic health and how oils and fats affect on our metabolism. First of all, I want to talk about lipids classification, and there's 4 different types. Of course, probably you heard about them is the saturated, mono-unsaturated, poly-unsaturated, and trans fat. So now I want to explain a little bit what's the difference between them and importance for our metabolism. So saturated fats, we want them to be around 5 to 10% from our diet. They don't have double bonds between carbon atoms, so it's a straight chains. And the main source will be butter, cheese, coconut oil, and our animal fats. They're solid at room temperature. So everything is a solid, like a shea butter as well, or normal classic oil butters. They will be saturated fat. But too much, if you're using saturated fat too much in our diet, they can stiffen cell membrane and promote inflammation in long term and increase LDL. So we don't want this to happen, but they want to balance them. So they're essential and they're very important to take them. Mono-unsaturated fats, this is, I would say, the most classically recommended and advertised fats, and we won't consume them at least 15 to 20% of our diet. And they have a one double bond. And by the source, that will be olive oil, avocados, almond oil, and they are fluid and liquid at room temperature. They are beneficial for heart and metabolic health in general. Poly-unsaturated or PUFA fats, they're so important and they have more than one double bond. Oops, sorry. So where I'm gone. Sorry. And that will be fish oil, flaxseed, walnuts, and sunflower. Polyunsaturated fats are essential and they're rich in omega-3 and omega-6. They're very important for cell membranes and signaling. And the worst, trans fat, they're absolutely artificial, and the chemically alterated, unsaturated fats, forced to be solid, and they usually processed food like margarine. They're very damaging to cells and they increase inflammation and increase in heart disease. So literally, ideally, we want to reduce them to zero in our diet. So why lipids are so important for our organism? Because they're essential for metabolism. They provide energy, they support cell structure, they help absorb fat-soluble vitamins, and they also need for hormonal production. We need to take, if in our diet, around 20 to 35% our total daily calories at least per day. So that they're so important. If you consume more fats during the daytime, our body's metabolism is more efficient in processing fats in the morning and afternoon. Saturated fat makes membrane more rigid, so less flexible, and unsaturated fat, mono and poly, they make membranes more fluid and flexible. So I understand here it's very important to keep the balance. So we need both saturated and unsaturated fat. So somebody's saying don't eat animals fat, they're absolutely wrong. Yeah, so you will have the cell membrane damage, and as a result that eventually will affect on your metabolism. In terms of cooking, it's probably the main question, what oils I should use for in daily basis for cooking. And here I want to highlight the most common, the golden standards and the best oils, of course, will be olive oil and avocado oil. They will be in the top tier for cooking. They both offer a unique combination for health, and you can buy them different qualities. They mainly olive oil. They have so many different smells, and literally even texture depending on processing. Avocado oils is very high in potassium, magnesium, that supports health and muscle and eyes, and olive oil is rich in antioxidant properties. So another very important point for the cooking is the oil smoke point. So the smoke point is when you all start to break down and produce a visible smoke. So when you're cooking, depends is it gas or is electric, or you put this in the oven, it's very important to make sure the oil is thermoresistant, so it's not breaking down and they don't produce any smoke. Why it's so important? Because when the smoke get produced, the oil break chemical structure start to break down and they start to create harmful compounds such as free radicals. And one of them is acrolein. It's super damaging for the cells in our DNA. So they produce a stimulate inflammation, they impair in insulin sensitivity, they increase in oxidative stress, they damage in cells, mitochondria, and even our genome. So will have eventually epigenetic response in the cellular level, and of course is effect in our fat metabolism, affects fat storage and metabolism, promoted weight gain. So here, as you see, avocado oil is preferable. Why? Because it's quite temperature resistant. You can heat it up to 270 degrees, of course, depending on the oil and the quality of your avocado oil. There's sunflower oil and virgin olive oil on the medium heat. So as you can see, the butter here is very low temperature. So if you're gonna cook, for example, something with coconut with butter, you probably will get the smoke and harmful ingredients together. So leave the butter just for sandwiches and or low heat preparations. And if you high temperature, preferably use relevant specific oil. What are refined oils? In my opinion, the refined or processed oils, they are the most dangerous and most damaging things that exist so far. In the community, and the people are not informed how dangerous it is. They've been boosting refining oils in the 1960s, 1970s, and the results and research have been made being postponed in terms of how much damage and how much cancer promoting these oils will be. And up to date, when you buy normal vegetable oil, you probably will buy refined oils and you're not aware about it because there's no strict law regulations saying that be careful, this is refined oils. They're quite cheap and they use them to fry French fries, for example, or chicken. Usually they use majority in the kitchen, they use just tons and tons a year, and majority of them will be refined. So if you're going to look in your kitchen or look in your diet or what you consume, probably majority of them will be refined. Why? Because it's convenient. Yeah, they remove impurities, they control the color of the oil as a result, they control the taste of your dish on the end. They increase shelf stability, and is just quality will be more guaranteed because it's being chemically processed. They do that with cheaper oils like sunflower oil, soybean oil, and other oils to increase appearance and shelf life in general, just to make sure preparations are the same. And they may increase inflammation, they alter fatty acid balance, they affect on lipid profile because we consume much more of them. They don't notice actually the purity, they're not called processed. They're not called processed, and you don't recognize the danger what they do. They're much higher on caloric density. They give you much more amount of energy in the small portions. As a result, I'm so sorry. And as a result, you can consume these oils much more. So with low amount, we give you more damage, more inflammation, and slowing down all the metabolism. And the body, because being refined, and a lot of nutrients, a lot of very important ingredients were taken away from these oils. your energy store excess fat from refined oils, leading to increased fat storage. And of course, vitamin E and oil soluble antioxidants that normally contains oil get removed during the process of purification. And here in the table, you can see the different way how they refine them. So my advice, just simply don't buy refined oils. So what oils we should do and should choose? Any cold processed oil will be the first line choice, and all of us should be careful to make sure they choose an only cold processed oil. The different words is just pressing the seeds and using that. All of them will be extra virgin oils. They always cold pressed or unrefined oils. Stay away from vegetable oil, canola oil, sunflower oil, soybean, corn oil, palm oil, peanut oil. They're usually refined, and they are refined mainly because they smell. Yeah, they can't guarantee the fragrance, and the sunflower oil shelf life is so low, approximately 1 year, depending on the temperature. It's quite sensitive to heat, to temperature. So, but if you can buy a normal cold press sunflower oil, it's just filter it, for example. Yeah, it will be great oil, but just make sure it's cold pressed. Make sure it didn't go through any process. But unfortunately, many will be refined. So now it's very important. I want to put your attention to poly-unsaturated fats, because they divide into two groups, omega-3 and omega-6. You probably heard, and I try to share with you more awareness about importance of omega-3 and omega-6. So we need both. And it's very important for us to keep the nice balance. Don't consume too much omega-3 or omega-6. It's very important here, balance. Omega-3, they have three main components, so the names will be alpha-linoleic acid, EPA, and DHA. And they're very important, DHA, especially for the brain structure, cognition, and vision. So it's very important to make sure your children get or during brain development, so it's with children, young adults, and then later in life to prevent dementia. And there is a lot of studies saying that it can't prevent clearly dementia, but omega-3 is quite a strong, I would say, factor that will influence on the way how your brain age. And omega-6 was linoleic acid, main and arachidonic acid. They mainly found in sources in different soybean oils, corn oil, sunflower, refined oils, different words. They full of processed food, animal products, and nuts and seed. But what is very important, if you, for example, taking nuts, raw nuts, they all contain mixture of omega-3 and omega-6, we shouldn't be worried because we need both. But what is very important here is don't consume a lot of refined oils. If omega-6 is natural unprocessed source, they're quite beneficial and they're not that damaging. The damage and the danger here coming from chemical process the oil is going through for stability. Why DHA is so important? Because our brain is, I would say, 50%, up to 50% made from fats, and DHA is one of them, very important, fat in the brain fat structure. It's critical for pregnancy and early childhood, for the brain and eye development. They have very strong anti-inflammatory action. Is produce different special molecules that actually resolve inflammation. They have heart protection actions, and they slow brain aging, and reducing Alzheimer's and dementia, and increase your sharpness of age. and highly recommended. Women who entering menopause, entering premenopause and menopausal women, is essential to take to make sure they do take a DHA nearly daily, and make sure the amount of them is that important. Yeah, mainly from age of 40, 50 for women. Omega-6. So as I said before, you don't need to be really worried about omega-6. What we need to be worried about is the source of your omega-6 that's come from. So if it's come from processed oils, they're really dangerous. And sadly, it's the case. So we don't see them because you don't know when we go to a restaurant or you eat in McDonald's or other shops or takeaways. They usually use processed oils. And as discussed before, the increase in chronic inflammation, diseases, cardiovascular, and reducing mental health. So, but let's say as well what they do and benefits, yeah, because it's not only negative things. And natural omega-6, they're super beneficial and we need them. They're essential for our organism. They maintain cell membrane integrity and fluidity, and they precursors as well for omega-3 and another important signaling molecules. They are also affecting the skin health. They're critical for skin barrier and preventing dryness of the skin. They're very good source for energy. They're stored in fat tissue for metabolic needs. But if it's too much linoleic acid, and they get in produce as a result too much arachidonic acid, they can cause chronic inflammation, and that inflammation in here, number one source, the number one danger of all metabolic issues and diseases as a result, including cancer. So arachidonic acid, delivered from linoleic acid in the body, is a precursor to prostaglandins, a lot of different molecules, very essential for our organism. They regulate inflammation. Yeah, they trigger and resolve inflammation. So we have these two roles. They help with blood clotting and vascular tone control. They play a crucial role in the immune system to get response to any sort of inflammation. It's important as well for the brain development, important structure fat for brain and nervous system, and muscle repair and growth. So here's very important to understand that omega-3 and omega-6, so they quite often go aside together in the nuts and the fats, like in different sources. The nature is very clever, and they need them both. But the problem is, if you isolate them and consume them too much from benefits, they're going to harm. Another thing, and not only omega-6, so again and again, is overconsumption of ultra-processed food, omega-6 source, affecting the gut and microbiomes. They're going to talk in depth next week about microbiomes and important how microbiomes affecting gut and brain axis. So this is how they're linked together, and this is how our psychology and other thoughts, memory, and the way how we perceive the world is linked. So too much these processed oils rich with omega-6, they affect microbiome imbalance. They cause gut inflammation and gut diseases like inflammatory bowel disease, Crohn's disease, and different colitis. And they impact and have an effect on the short-chain fatty acids. They reduce production of very important substances, but weaken gut barrier. They affect in immune function and increase intestinal permeability. And of course, is the gut-brain axis, the effect as a result in the mood, stress responses, cognitive function, and as a result, contributing to mental health disorders and anxiety and depression. Ideal omega-6 to omega-3 ratio is 1, but we would say 4:1. So is a omega-6 4 units and 1 unit or omega-3. However, in modern diets, people use approximate combination from 20 to 1. So it's far away from recommended. So we need to reduce at least to start twice and then again twice from them. So very important is food processing. We're living for the last 50 years and on the way, low regulation, really scared about the way what we eat. And now we won't need to go through the process to reverse everything. So for the last 50 years, we won't process everything to make it safer. And now we realize that processing food have incredible bad influence in our organism. And in 2009, NOVA get introduced as a system of food processing. Then we divide them. It's quite NOVA is very classification is widely word used now. It's come from Brazil, São Paulo. One scientist introduced that to create awareness of the danger and make a strict regulations about the food we consume. So it's unprocessed or minimally processed food that usually is legumes, vegetables, there's raw ingredient. Then processed culinary ingredients like salt and butters, sugar, already cold pressed, for example, oils, and they're processed foods. And that might be already like a pre-made and they have sugar and very important, they have a lot of additives. So it's pH regulators, thickeners, emulsifiers, and ultra-processed food. And this is killer number 1, I would say, is a pandemic of ultra-processed food and is number 1 killer. Is a killer isn't worse than anything. I think we should take it really seriously and healthcare professionals, we all have to address the importance of processing ingredients and processing, ultra-processing food. And as I just trying to deliver information is about processed oils. And as you can see, it's different cookies, it's the pastas, pizzas. Again, there's nothing wrong with pizza was made. The problem is ultra-processed pizza. So if it's your homemade pizza with basic ingredients, there's nothing wrong with them. The problem is extra additives, colorants, what they're using. So ultra-processed food, what's the danger is industrial formulation. They're mainly made with extra. You can't make them in normal kitchen. So they have so many emulsifiers, isolates, additives, preservatives that it will be hard for you to make yourself. They're super tasty. So they always need to make sure they taste the same, because if the second batch wouldn't be the same tasty, you wouldn't be back, you wouldn't buy it again. So they want to hook you, so like drag you in to buy only their pizza or their cookie to make sure you have addiction to them to get more money. They absolutely low nutritional quality, they're high in sugar, refined carbs, refined fats, salt, they're low in fiber, vitamins and minerals, and they're super dangerous to health. So main obesity coming from ultra-processed foods, rich of sugars, and they're affecting cardiovascular, blood pressure, gut, mental health disorders. And they disturb natural eating signals. As a result, override hunger and fullness signals in the brain, brain reward pathways, making literally weight loss after that really impossible. Literally, it's a killer. It's the drug. The most dangerous drug than other drugs available, a recreational drug, I would say, that untreatable, very hard treatable. I would say so far is success is only 2-3%, is that dangerous. Super addictive in terms of stimulating dopamine pathways like drugs, and they're super convenient for everyone. They show long shelf life, there's no bacteria in there, are easy to eat, and is easy to marketing, and they boost the economy. This is number 1. They bring a lot of money to the government, and government no way gonna make any changes in them, I'm afraid. But there's still some changes will be made in future years. So what are there? So drinks, colas, energy drinks, favorite waters, the packaged snacks, sugar breakfast cereals, fast food, burgers, fries, nuggets, instant noodles and soups packed baked goods, frozen ready meals, pizzas, lasagnas, and of course sweetened dairy products like flavored yogurts and ice creams. So what the most contributes the most of ultra processed food? United States and UK, we are both the leaders in the world, the worst consumer ultra processed food, and it's not surprisingly that we have such a problem in terms of mental anxiety, mental health, depression, and other things. As you can see, for example, compares Mediterranean diet like Italy. They use only 18%, so they're making themselves pizzas. So what happened in the UK in terms of statistics and what happened in the UK? Up to 66% adults, 66% of the daily calorie come from processed food. In average, those so 66% using ultra processed food, and more than half of them coming from ultra processed food, and that causing obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, gut microbiome distortion, and affecting mental health. So here's the meta-analysis. So the scientists trying to combine all data from a lot of different research to find out how ultra-processed food affecting on our organism and what's going on, what is 100% affecting. And in terms of results is anxiety. So if you use ultra-processed ingredients, let's say ingredients, oils to sugars, and you overwhelm your diet with processing things, you're high risk to have anxiety, mental disorder outcomes, and depression. As a result as well, development of type 2 diabetes, of course, metabolic health, and all others. So what the UK and the government do about it? So in 2018, they put the levy on tax to get, of course, more money because we're going to lose so much money on sugar drinks. In 2022, the government put labeling in terms of businesses in England with over 250 employees are required to display calories information for not pre-packed food and drinks. And from October this year, 2025, restriction will be enforced across the UK to limit the advertising of less healthy food or drink products on TV and online platforms, including sale platforms. I think already you can't sell unhealthy ultra-processed food next to the checkouts. So, and of course, examples we discussed this ago and again. So the sugar sweeteners, frozen pizzas, breakfast cereals, takeaways, dairy products. So actually, you can't even imagine that majority of things what we eat, I would say at least half of the products will be processed. But we need to start from the ingredients. Yeah, ingredients, mainly oils and sugars, get processed, and their number one harm is. How we identify how they will identify the products in terms of how bad they are. It will be in terms of how amount of saturated fat. They high in sugars and high in salt, and they're so tasty. So we can't recognize level of the salt there and level of the sugar and level of the fat. They made businesses, if you like, make them so tasty and so good for us to try to taste, to consume more and more like a drug. So they make sure it's really tasty and hide all the information. So be careful what you eat, what you put in your mouth. So now I want to put attention importance of the lipids. So we should consume oils and what they do. And here is important, the most important compounds. What they do is triglycerides, for example, is glycerol, composed of glycerol and is free fatty acid, and they're super important to store energy in the adipose tissue for future energy use. Phospholipids, they're super important in cell membranes, as you know, they protect in the cells, and they're responsible for signaling so many things in our organism. So it's essential. Sugar myelins, actually myelin is a tiny little fatty protection of nerves endings. So if we don't have enough of variety of different fats, our nerve signaling will be damaged or inflamed, affecting our brain. So here is mainly more about omega-3, but not only. Ceramides, for example, they again is involved with cell signaling and self-death and inflammation. Steroids here are super important. Cholesterol, bile acids, and hormones. Cholesterol, we all hate them, but not all hate them because of a diet so rich with processed oils. The cholesterol getting increased incredibly. Is again not because of the oil consumption, but because of processed food. And these processed oils increasing our cholesterol. Yeah, so if you start to use good cold pressed oils without processed source, the probably cholesterol level will be increased for all of them. And they're essential, yeah, for testosterone, cortisol, vitamin D, bile acid production, because bile acid get produced by from cholesterol and super important as well for digestion and absorption of the fat, and not only fat in our organism. Production of steroid hormones, including reproductive hormones, prostaglandins that affecting inflammation and the pain and blood clotting, leukotrienes in immune response, and again inflammation. So now I want to talk a little bit about lipoproteins and lipid profile. And here some lipoproteins will circulate in total time in the bloodstream. So, for example, kilomicrons, they exist quite short periods of the time in the bloodstream, and they transport dietary lipids, triglycerides from intestine to liver. But we not usually test them because they in organism bloodstream for quite short periods of the time. Then you have very low density lipoproteins that transporting triglycerides from liver to peripheral tissues. Low density lipoproteins, or the bad cholesterol, they transport cholesterol from liver to peripheral tissues. And high density lipoproteins involved in cholesterol removal from tissues and transporting back. So literally, guys, moving here and there is like one brain second taken away, and they're busy doing their jobs. So now, what is very important, because it's this LDL been so attacked, because so many papers and so many bad things, bad information, or bad reputation about it. But what I want to say, not all LDL cholesterol is bad, because the job is very important, and they do a very important job. They transport not only cholesterol but fat soluble vitamins and antioxidants. When you have a low LDL levels, it might be harmful for the brain, for immune system, and the hormone production. But when it's very, very high, it can cause the heart disease and malfunction. So here is very important to understand the ratio and levels based on what type of LDL get increased is important. So why LDL is so dangerous, and why we're so scared of bad cholesterol, and why it gets such a bad reputation, is mainly is a plaque in clogged arteries. So it's not only about LDL presence. So alone, LDL wouldn't do any harm at all. Yeah, it's just circulating and doing the job. The problem that low density lipoproteins collecting all the mass and all the garbage, if you like, but circulating in the blood, coming from inflammation processes. Yeah, and this inflammation mainly happening from stimulants like refined oils, which we talk about, but sugar smoking and general inflammation from obesity, for example. So alone, if you're healthy, you don't have inflammation, you don't have any diabetes or any metabolic syndrome, your high LDL is not harm for you, and actually do a lot of good things. It's just like a Play-Doh collecting other negative things and microbes, for example, and viruses from the bloodstreams, and proteins, all these baddies, and circulating around doing a good job. But if you have inflammation, regular inflammation, microinflammation circulating regular bed, then yes, they're creating this plaque and they're clogging arteries and affecting your brain function. So here, when you look in the bloodstream, make sure you check inflammation biomarkers as well. And then, yes, you have to act and you have to do something about it. So here as well, I put special paper for you to understand that um, bad cholesterol is not that bad, but inflammation is bad. And macrophages in combination, how they create, how these foam cells get created and the harm what they do all together here is important. Free radicals, toxins, so actually how atherosclerosis get developed on what really is happening in our organism, how damaging all over picture and how it's getting bad. And of course, here statins is a solution. Statins is a medication group. If you have very high and you have high inflammation, and it's not only lowering LDL, is not the case, but what they do, the main benefit from statins come from anti-inflammatory effect. So you don't need, as I said, to take medication. Don't worry too much if you don't have inflammation process. But if you have inflammation, different inflammation processes, statins together with different metabolic profiles probably is a good thing to talk to your health care provider, to your doctor, and have extra examination. So take it seriously because a lot of things might be prevented. So start from the, first of all, do your blood tests. It's recommended from lecture number 1 is very important. Number 2, don't panic when you see your results. So is not maybe harm. So don't panic about the high cholesterol. Overall, it's quite actually doing a good job. But if you have an inflammation process and you're taking a lot of inflammation provocating foods, then make reasonable steps and start from the cause. Yeah, so everything that goes in us, food and ingredients that we're using as a starting point, and then already slowly reduce the cause. There's come the root, and then as well have a extra medical help, might be even medication as a statin groups.
Elena, can I ask a question about the
Sure.
previous slide? So, what exactly the statins do?
So
Can
they
you,
have
can
they
you elaborate a bit on this?
So the statins they will lower LDL, but and also they have an anti-inflammatory effect. So if you want, I will send you after that more explain how exactly it works. Yeah, but in terms of medication, in terms of benefits of statins, if somebody have a high cholesterol, here is no need to take them if you just have a high LDL levels. So here, healthcare professionals should examine it and take every single case individually. So if you don't have inflammation, here is absolutely no needs. But as I said, a lot of people taking statins with no needs. A lot of people.
But do they catch the new like the new cholesterol, or do they catch the old
So
one
cholesterol
and get rid of it?
is a quite wide group, isn't it? And they need to. I will go and talk about the next slide as well about LDL. And if you're going to lower even cholesterol level to quite low, is not beneficial. As I said, every single case should be looked individually. So we don't need to prescribe. And a lot of people now is a big issue. A lot of people worried about cholesterol and they're taking without proper examination statins, and actually as a result they're only harming themselves or benefit themselves, and they don't neutralize the cause where the why LDL get in a race. For example, it might be genetic is a very good parameter because people just get ill much less because LDL doing such a great job. So increase low density lipoproteins is not a problem. The problem is combination and inflammation process in the bloodstream together. They're getting clogging this artery, circulating as, if you like, as creating this I don't know, something like a little ball. We're collecting all the inflammation, breaking down proteins, and then stay in the arteries and clogging the brain. That is a
But
danger.
just this is clear, but just to double check.
Yeah,
So let's say I have like I need to take statins, right? I have a prescription to do that.
yeah.
Do they from this picture, do they capture the old LDL, which is already on the walls of the arteries, or do they capture the new ones, which I'm digesting, let's say like right now? So Like, how does it work exactly?
Probably both. Probably will be improvement, but it depends on probably need to done your sonography or ultrasound and check quality of your arteries. Is really the reason why you want to take them, and you need to discuss this directly with your healthcare provider, with your doctor, and your why they're being prescribed. So there's a lot of issue and a lot of discussions in healthcare. So in different countries, in different approach. I'm approaching from lifestyle medicine point of view that we definitely overprescribe statins in general. So if you have a high cholesterol in general, a lot of healthcare professional using the papers that is beneficial, and now we're saying there is no need. So here is really decision how harm it is. Do you have diabetes or pre-diabetic condition? What is your inflammation profile? Where does inflammation come from? And also as any other medication, statins have a side effects, and that need to be looked. So is any medicine have a pluses and minuses, but there is no need just take statins if you just have high cholesterol, for example. Yeah, I'm gonna explain here a little bit more about LDL, about the bad cholesterol that everybody is so worried about. So they have a different structure and different patterns. And the danger, again, the test, for example, is available. If you want to know, you can find laboratories and test your LDL to find out is it high risk or you're low risk. And your cholesterol, doing bad cholesterol, is that bad or is it good bad cholesterol? And here you can see, for example, even results. Why I'm sharing it? Because of big dispute in general health and overprescription statins, or people even trying and asking for prescription of statins because they have high cholesterol level. However, the LDL doing a lot of very good stuff. Yeah, so if triglycerides and high density, which parameters we need to look? We need to look in oxidative stress and inflammation biomarkers. We need to look for your insulin resistance in your general metabolic biomarkers. We need to see general quality of pattern A or pattern B. So which LDL cholesterol I would say the bad cholesterol, LDPP, is higher. So is just cholesterol is a good level, good ratio, is no need for medication. But if it's high, then probably you're in a high risk. Your liver function and your gut health. So all of them need to be monitored. And then you start taking statins. Ideally, we want monitor them as well. Yeah, but again, a lot of people have a genetics predisposition to have a higher cholesterol levels, and they don't have any harm at all. And a lot of latest papers suggest that actually it's quite good to have a high cholesterol if you don't have any other metabolic syndromes and other inflammations. The people live much longer and they don't have cardiovascular issues or everything described. But again, is lifestyle and is your choices. So don't take medication for longevity thinking that statins is super good, and a lot of people do because they're panicking of the cholesterol level. Again, science moving ahead. We learn more and more and more, and probably the source of your fat are key here. So what fats do you use? So you still ideally we want you to remove the cause of your high cholesterol if it's genetics, and if it's genetics and you're healthy, there's nothing literally. It's you can't fight it, and you shouldn't. And here is a sugar triglyceride journey. I can come back to sugar because modern sugar is ultra processed, and sugar is number one. It's very important in terms of from sugar we creating fat. Yeah, and from sugar, from the fat getting breaking down, and we get an energy, and very important sources. So metabolism is so clever and so smart. Ideally want to take maximum 25 grams of free sugars per day. But again, ideally want to have fructose unprocessed, so not the sugar, white sugar, but we all use. So again, fructose of fruits, that they're much healthier fructose. They're much heavier than processed white granulated sugar, for example, because it's processed, been already processed, so it's not that good. But in average in UK, for example, average consumption of sugar around 60 grams of free sugars per day with 35-gram extra, and in the United States around 80 grams per day with 55-gram extra recommended. And what happened to this extra sugar journey? So what's happened to this sugar? So 60%, approximately 60% of the sugar get stored in glycogen form. But they have a limit how much we can store is around 200 to 500 grams in total. And they're stored in liver and muscle cells. And then after that, we exercise, for example, we need to release our organism releasing this sugar in the bloodstream. But remaining 40% of glucose that can't be anymore stored in the muscle, can't be stored in liver, they get converted to triglycerides and stored in adipose tissue. And here, why I'm talking about triglycerides, the link, so if you have your lipid profile in the bloodstream high in triglycerides, that means you should have to cut off your sugar. Yeah, and it's very, very important because triglycerides in the fat profile not coming from your direct or from olive oil. They're coming from this excess sugar you're taking. And if your bloodstream triglycerides are very high, that's danger. So that's why what we want to see in your profile to make sure you have a good cholesterol, quite high level, and low triglyceride level. And if it's higher or average or high end, you have to cut off your sugars. It's number one source. But people sometimes thinking, oh, my cholesterol, my lipid profile is high, I have high triglycerides, they link to the fat, and they cut in the fat. No, you need to cut sugar. There's nothing linked to the fat, and 40% is quite a lot. And the more you eat sugar, the more triglycerides you have in your bloodstream, and that will affect your cholesterol. So yes, cholesterol is not only from fat, it's coming from sugar. So high sugar intake, high glucose level in the bloodstream, increasing insulin, and as a result, insulin increasing triglycerides, and your fat cells start to grow. And high triglycerides, what they do, if your lipid profile, you have high triglycerides, they worsen insulin sensitivity, and as a result, increasing your blood sugar. So here, as I finish with sugars, because people sometimes don't realize how much sugar they eat, they don't realize how much processed oils they consume. And I would like to protect you all and warn you all to be careful. Don't be scared of fats. So make sure they are around 20 to 30% and do your proper blood test. And if you have already questions, more than welcome, come back to me. So,
Elena, can I ask you a question?
sure.
Sorry. We talk about fats. You know, in the supermarkets, there's loads of spreads like proactive, and they do like loads of different spreads instead of butter. And it says in a packet, it's proven it lowers your cholesterol. In fact, I think they do the drinks like an Actimel, but it's proactive drinks. So, what is your thought about them?
Well, active drinks probably is more linked to microbiomes, rather to fat. Yeah, there's the drinks, is microbiomes is next week lecture. It's a very important lecture, so you're more than welcome to come. But yes, so drinks, proactive is probably with extra number one. They add on some sort of benefits, minerals, and bacteria to stimulate your microbiomes. Yeah, because it's very, very, very important. The good fats, animal fats, they're essential. We need to take animal fats. So people who, for example, full vegans who are not taking who are not consuming at all animal source, and they have a lack of animal source, or they will have lack if you don't use saturated fat. Yeah, so
Sorry, proactive is a brand.
proactive.
Yeah, they do the
Proactive.
drinks and a spread.
Spread. You mean margarine?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
there's
says
no
in a
good. It's
packet
not good. Try it. It's processed. Don't. It's nothing good. It's
because it's like
processed food. I would
misleading.
say always margarines. They're baddies. So don't consume them. Yeah, they're bad. It's nothing good to that.
It
I thought
says
proactive. I thinking about it was mean with proactive.
no,
Probably had
because it
some good
says in the
stuff.
packet it's proven it will lower your cholesterol. That's why I was going to ask you because it's like
No,
misleading.
I don't know what they've proven there because, as I said, it's cholesterol. I no, I don't know which proof because one proof, second unproof. So you need to look at meta-analysis now. You can't really easily reduce your cholesterol. Only what's the best reduction of cholesterol will be is grain. How do oh my God, I forgot how to call this place. Hercules. Somebody help me. I forgot language. Speaking for languages.
Oh, oats,
Porridge.
porridge.
Porridge. Oats. Yeah, oats. The best source to reduce your cholesterol is oats because what they do, then it goes in the gut. They absorb bile acid. Yeah. So what's happening? Oats, mainly this called when you cook them or retrograde them, yeah. So they go in the stomach. The bile acids get linked, get absorbed by oats, and they stay there and coming out. Yeah, so oats with bile acid. And what happening because the organism stomach lack of bile acid, cholesterol gets used to produce more bile acids. You see, and this is the process metabolism. So we start to switch on metabolism by removing this bile acid from the gut. Yeah, our organism sending signals, oh, how much cholesterol needs you because cholesterol produces bile acid. So if you have high cholesterol, probably the right way to do is every morning have oats. Yeah, better cool. So put the water in the fridge the best way because we're going to talk about fibers next week for microbiomes getting much better than boil them. So and then consume them in the morning. Yeah, and that would be probably the most effective and the most organic and actually that proven scientifically.
Overnight oats is better than porridge, right?
Unprocessed. Make sure your oats also unprocessed. So every food we recommend, we want them to be unprocessed because if you consume processed food, they're losing their benefits. So if, for example, you compare unprocessed oats, organic oats, yeah, they might be not perfect color, they might be not looking that unique, perfect, but they do much more benefits for organism. If you're in processed, and again, there's not everywhere you can see are they processed or not. So the more expensive brand or ready 5 minutes, 1 minute, breakfast porridges, in the pots, they will be processed. So they won't be beneficial. They're not
The question is really, so you have oats, okay, good
yeah,
quality, organic, blah blah.
yeah.
Should you make porridge or overnight oats?
Or ideally overnight oats. Why? Because when you steam, yeah, so you damage the molecule. They will retrograde after that. So ideally, if you're making a porridge, I recommend to put in the fridge to go for retrograding. So they won't reverse some, but it's not the same as leaving the porridge, for example, in the water or water called milk, for example, or water in the fridge overnight. So ideally, the most benefits from the oats will be leaving it in the fridge for overnight and consuming in the morning. That's the best detox possible and the only way proven. If you Google and in terms of research, that probably will be the best way. And in general, it's great to increase or speed up our metabolism. You just literally reduce bile acid. Yeah,
Add,
and I think a
add,
lot of yeah.
add in milk or not add in
You can
milk?
put milk, yeah, you can put water there, and again, it's really depends on you and what you want. Milk, fresh milk have microbiomes and lactic and different fats there. You can do oils, you can experiment, whatever you like. But if you do porridge, if you boil that, that is less beneficial. Yeah, so we recommend. But you can't do it every morning, you just try to relax about it. Don't be over reacted about this, but try use unprocessed, the most natural as possible, less processed, less clear and have more bacteria there. So don't be scared of bacteria. We're going to talk next week about microbiomes. Actually, we need them. So if you see something unclean, if you see a little bit of sand in your liver, my friends know I hardly wash the fruits. We don't want nitrates. Yeah, we don't want pesticide, but pesticide right inside. So it's very hard to rid of them anyway. So they already will be in the most important thing, like in the skin of the fruits, vegetables, so will be there, but you can't really rinse them that easily, I'm afraid. So, but organic grown vegetables and fruits, just if you eat a little bit of soil, if you eat a little bit of bacteria, it will be only beneficial effect. And so now we sell for such much money extra bacteria to improve microbiomes, but you can easily just relax about washing everything, sanitizing, cleaning, making every single oat looking perfect. So yeah, it's important to look at the root causes. Don't panic if you have some biomarkers not very good. Understand where it's come from. Yeah. So for example, if you're looking at lipoprotein lipid profile and you have you're high in triglycerides, just cut your sugar, number one. Yeah. So don't take statins. If you have high triglycerides and for example low density, the bad cholesterol and total cholesterol bad, again, try and modify your diet for a few months, see how it goes. If you have underlying conditions, then yes, but lifestyle medicine is all about metabolic health, is to find out the root cause, individual approach. We'll look in every single individual individually, and you need to understand that medicine can cause you more harm than on the end, you still need to take reasonable steps to remove inflammation process, because if you're still going to consume inflammation containing products, a lot of our processed foods like sugars, these processed oils. So if you're choosing oils, make sure they're unprocessed, they're raw as possible. Yeah. So, but if you're going to choose these oils because, oh, Elena said they're very good for my bowels and reducing cholesterol, and you're buying processed oats, they wouldn't do benefit. Yeah, so if you overboil and eat, for example, that you retrograde or keep in cold process, they will benefit even more. So again, but the level of benefit after that, how much bile acid will be absorbed depends on your microbiomes, it depends on your gut. So here as well, person to person will be different. Young individual will be much better, more significant result than older person. So that's why just try it. Just do it. More questions? No? So thank you so much then for coming today, and I will